All right, we're back live tonight with you here on In Focus, and thanks for staying on. Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana has announced a 20 rands increase to the Social Relief of Distress grant beginning next month. President Cyril Ramaphosa introduced the measure during the COVID-19 outbreak. Pay the Grant's Deputy Chairperson, Elizabeth Raiters, joins us now for reaction. Elizabeth, good to have you, and thank you very much for coming on. The Cabinet saying this was always going to be a case, that the SRD grant would be increased. Finance just had to work out the nuts and bolts of it. Well, it came down to a 5.7% increase. It sounds like a huge number if you call it like that, but in real terms, it is 20 rands that is being added. What's your reaction?
Good evening, Tava. How are you doing? And good evening to the listeners. I would say we are very disappointed as paid the grants, that the minister would actually increase the grant only with 20 rand. As we know, the grant has not received the increase since it was implemented 4 years ago. So to actually say you're increasing it now with 5.7% is actually basically nothing, because the value of the grant has fallen so much in the last few years that you can't actually say that you now increased it to 5.7%. And I think it's a slap in the face of beneficiaries.
Talk to me about that calculation that you have done around how much that value has deteriorated. I mean, the grant was initially introduced in May 2020. However, since then, of course, we know that inflation and the cost of living has gone up.
With the inflation rate currently, the grant at least should be now be at least at the amount of 450 rand. That is what the grant should be. But because they've kept it at 350 for the past 4 years, the grant lost its value with the inflation, seeing that food prices went up. If you take a basket of food in 2020 and you compare it to now, the value of the grant is about 200 and something rand. So which means the increase of 20 rand is really not going to make any difference to any beneficiary out there.
So about what, 33.6 billion rands is the cost to government, and about 9 million people now receiving this grant. Are they still all pretty much receiving the grant, or could there have been an improvement in some of them now that, for example, areas like tourism is picking up back to its pre-pandemic levels, and there's been some uptick as well? For example, if you look at the latest statistics coming from Statistics South Africa in terms of certain sectors of society. So that number would be less than 9 million, and maybe they could have afforded to give people a little bit more.
What I can tell you, it is not 9 million people that's receiving the grant. It's about 16 million beneficiaries that apply every month for the grant. Only about 8 million gets approved. And you can say around about 7 million gets paid every month on time. The other 1 million does not get paid, they just get approved. So in the last few months, I work on the ground. So in the last few months, I actually found out that more people actually have been declined. Beneficiaries that have never been declined have been declined. So the decline rate has actually grown. And I can't understand the increase coming when budget was cut by nearly 3 billion for the cycle. So even that 20 rand increase that they are giving beneficiaries is still going to impact other beneficiaries, because now less beneficiaries are going to benefit because the budget was cut by nearly 3 billion in the cycle.
Yeah. Being on the ground, does the 350, because government is convinced that, I suppose, not their words exactly, but you get the sentiment that 350 is better than nothing. It certainly makes a difference.
The 350 does make a difference, but it only makes a difference at least buying food for 2 days. That's what I can tell you. With the cost of living, it only buys food for 2 days. But there is those beneficiaries that's really struggling and suffering out there, that really needs every cent that they can get. And this 350 means so much to them. And this is why we have gone forward with litigation, that the government must at least put this grant just below the food poverty line, which will actually make sure that beneficiaries at least get the basic food that they need every day, because right now they cannot afford the basic foods. So this is actually very worrying that government actually decided to even just increased 20 rand. And, you know, we did not hear of how much they were. We didn't even know if there was going to be an increase. It was announced last minute in budget. And then also, I don't know if DSD was even aware of what the amount was going to be, because I wouldn't think that they would actually be happy with the 20 rand increase for a grant that didn't increase in the past 4 years.
There are some who say this could largely be linked to the general elections, May 29th, and the time in which it was announced and the timing of it for others is suspicious. How do you feel about it?
I definitely think this has to do with politics. We do know even talk all around the universal basic income grant on the table is also linked to the elections. As we know, they are using beneficiaries as a pawn. All political parties are using beneficiaries as a pawn, but at the end of the day, it's still the beneficiaries out there, they're struggling and suffering and going hungry. And being Human Rights Month, I think that government should really come back to the ground and see how devastating it is on the ground and how people are suffering on the ground and what the real food prices is on the ground and what 350 can actually buy you in a shop for 1 month. And they expect beneficiaries to survive only on that 350 rand.
All right, Pay the Grants Deputy Chairperson Elizabeth Raiters, appreciate your time. Thank you very much for coming on this evening.